everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fridays with Fawn. I'm Fawn Lopez, publisher emeritus of Modern Healthcare. Today, I'm talking with Joyce Chan Russell, Senior Vice President of Government Markets at Priority Health, a leading provider-sponsored health plan with 1.3 million members headquartered in Michigan. Joyce, I'm delighted to have you as my guest on today's episode.
Fawn, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you for joining us. All right, let's get started. So as the executive P&L leader for government markets, overseeing individual Medicare Advantage and Medicaid businesses at Priority Health, which ranks as the nation's third largest provider-sponsored health plan, your role carries a significant impact. What factors attracted you to this position? And could you please share what have been your most important priorities since assuming this role in 2021?
Sure. So I will say that I was attracted to this role for a couple of reasons. One was the opportunity to broaden my scope. I had been focused on Medicare Advantage for several years. And so this opportunity to have responsibility and oversight over the entire consumer and government business for Priority Health was just really exciting to me. It felt like a really great way for me to continue to grow. And as you said, right, the impact that I could have. Priority Health, as part of an integrated system with Corewell Health, is in this unique position to really help transform healthcare. And so that was something that I was very, very excited about joining an organization that has that potential. And in terms of priorities, the priorities that I've been focused on, one is achieving sustainable growth, right? No mission without margin, and really continue to grow the impact that we have. Second is, like many of us working in healthcare, ensuring that we're providing access to affordable, high quality care, right? Just that mission. And then again, healthcare transformation. I want to make sure that we are continuing to move forward in this journey to healthcare transformation.
Wonderful. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of that, some of those priorities later.
Sure.
So your work is heavily influenced by policy, healthcare policy at the national and state levels. What are some of your biggest concerns for healthcare policy in the coming year? And what are some of your biggest hopes?
Sure. So, in terms of concerns, I would say one is healthcare costs, right? They continue to rise, and it is crazy when you look at any other industry and the cost increases that we have. And I think from a policy standpoint, it really is this challenge of balancing, incentivizing innovation, while also ensuring that healthcare is affordable and accessible to everyone. And, right now we see a lot of this with respect to pharmacy costs. And, the example that we see in the news, there are headlines every day, right, around the GLP-1s, and really holds a lot of promise for what it can do for a lot of the conditions, the chronic conditions that we have in our society, but then also really, really high costs, right? So how do we balance those things? Complexity is another big concern. And there's been a real push to simplify, right? And the example I would give here is price transparency, where there have been requirements around what organizations need to share to help promote consumerism and really allow people to be able to compare apples to apples. And of course, as this has been implemented, it's actually fallen very short of expectations because of the complexity that's inherent in pricing. And so the data is out there, but it's really the consumerism aspect of it hasn't, really taken hold because it's just hard to interpret the data and to have that apples to apples comparison. The final concern I would say is just the aging population, right? And as our population continues to age, we need really robust policies, both from a payment and a regulatory standpoint, to support that large, growing, aging population, who, by all means, I would expect would continue that aging in home will continue to be a really big growth area. In terms of hopes, I have really like the two things I would point out: affordability. And I think about the last 10 to 15 years, the passage of the Affordable Care Act and what that's done to expand affordable healthcare, right, and access to that. It's been humongous, right, and it's made a real difference in people being able to live healthier lives and healthier communities. And so I have high hopes that we'll continue on that trajectory, and that importance on access to affordable care will continue. And health equity, right? So it goes hand in hand with that. And I think we've come a very long way. And the focus that CMS, for example, has on health equity, and that they've put it into some of their quality ratings programs, has helped and really helped focus stakeholders in the industry on health equity. And, a lot of us have been talking about it for a while, but when money starts to be put into the equation around it, it makes it matter even more, and it makes getting real results matter even more.
So I'm really curious. Your undergraduate degree is in chemical engineering. What inspired you to diverge from that path and pursue an MBA in strategy and nonprofit management, and eventually leading you into the field of healthcare?
Yeah, I would say, I think the first question is really, why did I choose chemical engineering? How did I get there? And I'll answer that quickly, because it tells the story of how I ended up in healthcare. But I chose chemical engineering because, as a senior in high school, when you're applying to colleges, they ask you what your major is. And I knew that I did well in math, I did well in chemistry, and I'd heard chemical engineering is the hardest thing that I could do. So yeah, I'm going to do that. And so I walked this very kind of straight path of, I'm doing the hardest thing I can, just like I've done throughout high school, and it was fine. Like I did internships. I worked at a sulfuric acid recycling plant for a summer. I worked in a fab at Intel for a summer, and I did eventually take a full-time role as an engineer. I was working at Kodak, and in that role, I realized I don't know that I see myself doing this forever. And hence going to school and getting an MBA to try to explore what else was out there. And it was a fantastic opportunity, through business school, to be able to try out different opportunities. And so I ended up going into management consulting for a few years right after business school. And it was there that I fell into healthcare, right? So I had some engagements in healthcare, really on the provider side. And it was fantastic, right? Lots of, as I said, complex problems, a lot of challenges. And so, tying it back to the beginning of how do I work on really hard stuff, I think healthcare has some of the hardest challenges in our society. And so when I left consulting and was looking for that next opportunity, it made a lot of sense to continue with healthcare. I moved over to the payer side instead of the provider side. And that's where I've been. And it's been a fantastic journey since then.
Well, thank you for sharing that. You don't know this, but I too started college in engineering, chemical engineering, because I was really good in math and science. Isn't that crazy?
That's great.
Well, after organic chemistry, I found myself I couldn't see myself doing engineering work. Yeah. I just couldn't do it. So I admire you for having gone through with it because I quickly, after my sophomore year, switched my major. So, but anyway, very interesting background that we shared. So thank you for sharing. Let's talk about population health and equity. Both are very important to you and important aspects of your work. Can you talk about some of the initiatives that you've been part of to address social determinants of health and reduce health disparities in Michigan?
Sure. So I'll start by sharing something internal to Priority Health that I did when I first joined, which was I helped to centralize the function of population health and health equity. We created a unique department, and the reason for that was really to provide more visibility and more accountability to this really important work. And it had been going on in pockets across the organization, but by centralizing it, it had more power, right? And we could do more. And so that was a really kind of instrumental part, I think, of where we're headed on a journey standpoint and the work that we're doing. I'll say one thing that we're really proud of is earlier this year, we achieved NCQA accreditation, health equity accreditation. So we're the first plan in
Congrats.
Michigan to achieve that. And that's really a recognition of the strong foundation we have for health equity work, the culture that we have around it, the data, everything's lining up. And so again, it's a marker for the work that we're doing. There's still a lot more that we need to do. And so I would share in terms of programming, because you asked, what have we done exactly? We launched several years ago what we call a full life cycle SDOH program. So we partnered with some industry organizations to proactively identify social risk in our members, initiate culturally resonant engagement to really understand what's going on. We connected those members with those critical resources in the community to address their needs, and then really measuring the impact. So what happened? How can we continue to refine our program to get even better? And so it's been a pilot that we've continued to iterate on and to try to really improve what this looks like. I will say also through our foundation, we've done a lot of work to make sure that we are doing our part, right, from a community standpoint, and where there are opportunities and grants that we can make around social determinants of health that are really going to help ultimately with health outcomes and helping people get into the right place so that they can pay attention to some of their health needs beyond the social needs that they have as well. That's been a focus for us.
What kind of grants have you been able to make?
Yeah, so we've done a lot. I'll say one thing that we are proud of. We've made several grants to in the Detroit area around tiny homes, and really being able to help address homelessness in a meaningful way. And so the Tiny Home Project, it is about identifying people, right, who have housing insecurity, who could benefit from a tiny home. And after a few years of them responsibly, being there and being a contributing member, they can actually have ownership of their tiny home. And so it really sets them up for longer term success.
Let's talk about D&I.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your dedication to actively advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only within Corewell, but also within the broader community. What drives your passion for D&I, and could you share some of your proudest achievements in this area?
Yeah. So I will say, first of all, I am passionate about D&I work. I will not say that I'm an expert at it or that I'm like the leading person, but I very strongly believe that it's so important for all of us, right, to be champions for this. Within Corewell Health, I am the executive sponsor for we have business resource groups around different groups and different cohorts of team members. So I'm the executive champion for the Asian American Business Resource Group. And I'm engaged with the Women's Resource Group as well. And I will say it is such an honor to work with the team members who really actually do all the work on the business resource groups, because for the Asian American one, for example, they do so much really great work to, one, create a sense of belonging for people, two, to help from a cultural standpoint, create more opportunities for people to learn about Asian culture, and then also just the networking and professional development opportunities. It's really incredible. Within the larger community outside of Corewell Health, I am on the board of the YMCA Grand Rapids and Junior Achievement for the Michigan Great Lakes region. And both of those are, I'm really proud of the work that I do with them and to be, able to serve, because both organizations, in terms of focus on helping youth really have opportunities to achieve their best potential, I think is just so incredibly important. It starts at young ages, right? And really nurturing and providing um, opportunity and providing kind of exposure to opportunities, and that I think is incredible. And the work that both the Y and Junior Achievement does is, I feel honored to be part of it.
In your opinion, what can healthcare organizations do to better support the career growth of women and other underrepresented groups? On the other side, what advice do you have for women and minorities who want to advance in their career?
So, from an organizational standpoint, I think there are two big things that we can do. So, one is building talent pipelines through the community, through educational partnerships. So, like I mentioned, right, with the Y, with Junior Achievement, with many other really great organizations out there, young people need examples, they need role models. It matters for them to see that they could be in a role like this, they could be at an organization like this. And, I, I say this as I think about, for example, I mentioned before I was in management consulting for a few years. I had no idea that even existed as a career option, right? I didn't
Mhm.
have the exposure to that. And so it just matters kind of who you talk to and what you're exposed to can really make a difference in, decisions and things that young people aspire to. Um, Second, I would say supporting talent within the organization is also really important, and thinking about what kind of informal and formal mentoring and networking opportunities is the organization creating for women, for underrepresented minorities, right? And creating very intentional professional development opportunities internally and externally, in career growth opportunities, right? And so intentionally thinking about this and making it part of the culture, I think
Mhm.
would go a long, long way. And I will say I'm glad I see many organizations are doing this. So that does give me lots of hope for where we're headed. In terms of,
Absolutely.
yeah, and in terms of advice, you mentioned that for women and minorities who want to advance, I would say a few things. So one, be your own advocate, right? So um, don't shy away from thinking about and planning for what you want and talking to your mentors, to your leaders about that, looking for opportunities proactively for development and exposure and asking for them, right? And I would also say, also in line with our conversation around chemical engineering, make a plan, but be flexible to make detours, right? I think it's
Mhm.
very rare that someone has a straight line path, right, from one role to to a senior role in an organization, but rather most of us kind of zig and zag as we gain more skills, learn more, develop, and it's all part of growing, and I think we should all welcome that. um, the one other thing I would say is, well, two other things. One is take on tough problems, don't shy away from the challenge. I think it's easy, and I had this moment at one point in my career where I was in a role where I really knew what I was doing. I
Yeah.
felt very, I was successful in it. I felt like I got this, and which was great. It was a great feeling. And then there was a challenge, an opportunity to take on a new challenge. And I thought for a second, I feel really comfortable. Do I want to take on this new thing? And I would just, my advice is take it on, right? Like, because that's how you grow. You push yourself, you take it on, and like, yeah, you may not, you may fail, you may succeed, right? But you will grow and you will learn. And that's what's really important. And that last piece of advice is just communication skills, because I do think that that is the single most important thing
Right.
that anyone can develop. And I think you would agree with me in the role that you have, right? But being able to communicate complex topics, communicate with a wide range of audiences, and really being able to build an authentic connection with other people, like that, I think is the single most important skill that any of us could have.
100%. And, I agree with everything you just said. Um, you know, Ladies, speak up. uh, let your leaders know your aspirations, what you want. Work hard for the job that you have, but work for the job that you really wanted. So to me, it's critically important that we be our own advocates. So important. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk personal. Tell us about your family and how do you balance your time and energy between work and family life? And has this been a challenge at any point in your career?
Sure. So I have a fantastic husband, and I have three kids who are currently in third, fifth, and seventh grades. And so I will
Wow,
say unequivocally,
small.
yes. Yeah, it's a lot. It's it's been a challenge, right, at many points. And people talk about balancing work life and family life, and I think I think it's rare that I would say things are perfectly in balance because there are times when you lean into one or you lean into the other because that's where you need to. But what I have really learned over the years is that flexibility and forgiveness are really important, right, for everyone in my family because uh, we all have expectations, we all have things that we want to do and need to do, and but we're all human at the end of the day, right? And so having the kind of relationship with my husband and with my children where I can be human, right, and I don't claim to be perfect is important. I will say, my husband has a demanding career. We never lived near kind of extended family, so childcare has always been a challenge, but we've benefited greatly from having fantastic caregivers, right? And a nanny for my children when they're younger, who really, really helped and supported us, enabled me to be able to be fully present at work and not worry about safety for my children or anything like that. And so a lot of credit goes to, the people who help us out all the time, whether it is extended family, whether it is a nanny or a babysitter. But that's been immensely helpful and phases of life, right? So my kids aren't that young anymore. A lot of the work is around chauffeuring them to
Yeah,
activities these days.
that's right.
But I will say everything evolves, and as we all grow, we all get better at it. And I go back to the flexibility and forgiveness.
Yeah, and be kind to yourself, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
okay to miss something. Anyway, thank you. So, how do you stay inspired and continuously grow as a leader?
I think about all the incredible work that's happening around. When I think about just healthcare, right? Like it's easy to get, I would say, if you want to be disillusioned about things, you definitely can, because there's a lot that is broken that we've been
Yeah.
working on for a long time that continues to be a struggle. But there are also a lot of really cool things that have happened. And so looking at some of those really cool innovations and how we've progressed is inspiring. And I would say too, just conversations with others, right? Whether it's, my colleagues here at Priority Health or when I'm at a conference and talking to others just in an industry, I'm always inspired because we seem to have this, we're all aligned in this mission
Yeah.
and the work that we're doing and trying to really improve things. And so really that connection with others, that humanity it inspires me continuously because, if any one of us try to do this alone, right, it would be so easy to give up. And
Right.
it takes all of us kind of working our angles to really try to move the needle.
That's great. There's a proverb that it's one of my favorites is when you want to go fast, go alone. When you want to go far, go together.
Yes,
So we
I
got
love
to
that.
work together. We got to be together. So my last question for you today: what is something you know now that you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
So there are two things. I know I never just have one. There are two things. So one is don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think I spent a lot of time when I was younger and earlier in my career where I was really focused on the perfect and not realizing that by being so focused on perfect, I was letting kind of the good stuff kind of get away, right? We weren't moving the ball forward because we were so focused on perfect. And the second is, it's a quote from Maya Angelou, which you may have heard before, but I love it and I think about it a lot. That people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget about how you made them feel. And I think about that. I mentioned it a few times. It's our humanity, right? Making that human connection, but it's our humanity that connects us, and it's our humanity ultimately that matters at the end of the day. And so it's easy to get caught up in the minutia. There's a lot of challenges that happen, but if we can keep that integrity and think about how am I making others feel, right? How is this coming across? Again, I think that ultimately is what matters.
Joyce, I've truly appreciated our conversation today. Thank you so much for generously sharing your story with us. I wish you continued success. You have a huge runway, and I love it. I love it that you're so passionate and so positive and so empathetic. So I know you're going to be so successful in the years ahead.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for your time. And to our awesome viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. Your support means the world to me. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next Fridays with Fawn. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful month and be well. Thank you.